Bonjour and bienvenue à tous. Welcome all to the guidance and advice. Today in this video, I want to discuss unreliable sources. Uh, there are a lot of unreliable material out there concerning learning French. What I mean is, of course, we want to go quickly. We want to learn. We want to perfect the language. We want to be as good as we can. And so we go digging around looking for stuff. Unfortunately, uh, it doesn't always pan out. Now, I'm a big spokesperson, I'm a big supporter of the idea to go quickly. I find it's very engaging, it's very fun. We get immediate results, we can apply right away. That's very fun. It creates a virtuous circle. The idea being that the better we are, the more we use it. The more we use it, the better we are, and so on. Confidence also works very nicely in that recipe. Yet, we want to go fast, but sometimes we end up on material that may not work very well. For example, I'm a big fan of Duolingo. I do some Duolingo for other languages, of course, needless to say. But if you're picking up French with Duolingo, you are learning in a standard professional way. You are learning the typical pedagogy. Pedagogy, ped means child. And so the idea in Greek pedagogy is that you are learning like a child, like someone who has no knowledge at all. And that can be useful to you. Of course, I teach andragogy. Andragogy is teaching adults. We use your existing knowledge. And there are few schools that do that. Ultimately, pedagogy might be very good to pick up knowledge that you've never had, but at some point, to some extent, there is a cap on what we want to learn the traditional way. And what I mean by that is, boy eats apple. Great. That is a useful sentence when you see a boy eating an apple. And that's about it. And then a man opens window. Very good. But those are sentences. And that sentence need to be applicable. We want to pick up the context, we want to pick up the knowledge and so on. Applicable use to transfer that use. Well, those are not always the best kind of source. At some extent, to some extent, and at some point, to some extent, we are going to need a different approach. Picking up vocab acquisition, things that are relevant to your specific work or social ways, whatever you wish to learn French for. Well, presumably, assuming that it's for professional use, for the workplace, we are going to want to um, use material that is relevant to a professional workplace. If you are in sales, you want to use documents pertaining to sales to pick up vocab. If you want to, if here's something that you don't want, unreliable source. An unreliable source, the newspaper. The newspapers are of course, they are walking a thin line. They have to deliver news, but they're also interested in maybe shaping people's mind, political opinions, and so on. There's a little bit happening behind, and of course, they have a liability. They are responsible for what they say, so they can't go ahead and say this happened. This is a fact. It might not be a fact. So everything might be inaccurate to some extent. Uh, uh, Gabriel claims to be a teacher. He apparently has a so-called French program. Sounds like I'm a big liar and I'm not a teacher at all. But that's just how they phrase things for their own kind of liability, their own protection, plausible deniability, and so on. What I mean to say is that will not transfer well. Not well for your communication, not well for you to then reuse these things. Here's a quick example, a quick anecdote. I used to have a father-in-law who was a man who traveled a lot for work, and I was really interested because I traveled a lot myself, and so on. And so I didn't speak proper English at that time. I did not speak at this level, let's say. I want to tell him, how cool is it that you get to travel for work? How fun! That's so great. I'm happy for you. But instead, I sounded more like in French, perhaps, but the message got hurt. And what I said is, it must be nice to travel, meaning I believe it must be very fun. Oh, how enjoyable. Well, it didn't come out as how enjoyable, how support. It comes across as, oh, must be nice. Some people got it good here, traveling for work. Yeah, my eye, all that kind of stuff. It didn't convey the message I meant. That is unreliable. Newspapers, unreliable. Certain amount of learning software out there, not very reliable. Here's other things that are unreliable. YouTube. Look at me. Hmm. Here's what I'm doing here. Very hypocritical what I'm doing here. But there are plenty of pseudo so-called French teachers online. And they have good followings and they have good that's a lot like Duolingo minus the actual learning approach. Uh, those are French speakers. And there is information overload. You might need a French second language teacher, FLS, Français langue seconde, because you already have the English knowledge in your pocket here. You already know English. And so, because you know the English language, well, the training and the class, the theory, everything should be relevant to the English speaking crowd, meaning that I've had a quick experience. I've had this happen a few times. I explained to students what we're going to be talking about in the next session, and so verb tenses. Well, they want to save a bit of time. Maybe you want to save a bit of money. They go and check it out online. But then you're getting unprofessional teachers who do not get paid for this. They get paid by ads or whatever else, clicks. I'm not sure, but they're not getting paid by clients. They're definitely not high-profile clients like the ones I work with. Uh, Not that I exclusively work with. I don't judge. Everyone's welcome. But the idea is the stakes are high when it comes to the government of Canada. The language test is unforgiving if you're not on topic. If your message is distorted, if what you meant to say ended up being a different message, a wrongful message. Well, we can't trust you as a language. We can't trust you speaking on behalf of Canada to all of Canada, and so on. So, what I mean to say is, I specialize in this kind of thing, but a lot of folks out there do not, and a lot of them are not even teachers at all. They're just French speakers. So now they've put some knowledge in your head. Humpty Dumpty, when he fell, we could never put him back together. Well, that's a little bit what our brain might be like. Is that if you end up going on these videos and you think, oh God, I think I get it. Maybe I'll watch a couple more videos. It'll make more sense. Baff, you are getting further and further away from learning French as an English speaker. You are getting data from a French person, a French perspective on the French language. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that's a bad thing because it behaves differently. If we knew English, if we adapted from English to French, it will make perfect sense. Here's what you're trying to say, and here's how we say it. Here's what you don't want to say because you're conveying the wrong message. That's something that I'd say language schools in Ottawa tend to work on. You are in better hands in an actual formal language school than you are with a lot of that baloney online. Unfortunately, uh, and of course, I'm all for, that's kind of what happened with the internet, is that we were hoping to have all this information. Yeah, we did. Information overload, overkill, no go, no good. And so I recommend to stay away from those. What do I recommend? I recommend more reliable sources. We could say subtitles are not always bad. They're not always good. I will keep them unreliable, perhaps, because, for example, Netflix has they have a choice, a selection of words that they use. They choose specific vocab concerning syllables. It has to match the lips. If it's somebody is a dork, a dweeb, a freak, a geek, all those they will transfer it to un un blaireau. Un blaireau. I've never really heard people call each other blaireau. It means a badger, the animal, but it fits conveniently in text. D'accord? And so the lips have to match. Often enough on television, in programs, Netflix or elsewhere, they generally have translations made, the subtitles, and then they actually change that text because it needs to match people's lips. We can't have people remember. Maybe you remember like old-fashioned dubbing, and someone is talking and we don't hear anything. D'accord? Something like that. That is not what we want here. Alors, we don't want to go with a script. I know this movie well. I know what he says, and then I hear it in French. It's not really the same message. It's not what you're reading. What you're reading is not what they're saying. What they're saying might not be exactly what you meant or what you believe to be, because we have to change the context and so on. So those might also be unreliable resources. Yes, absolutely. And so YouTube, not very reliable, not many professionals in there. A lot of content that will actually damage you irreparably, I believe. Then television overall, subtitles that could be good if they're reliable, but it's a hit and miss. Otherwise, Duolingo, stuff like that, I recommend it, but to some extent. Here's what I do not recommend, and I will say it bluntly. I'm allowed to my opinion, and I have a very professional opinion. Avoid Rosetta Stone. Maybe for other languages, I've seen the entire program for French. It is utter garbage, and I really mean it. Why do I say it's utter garbage? Because we are having a conversation, not even a conversation. It's basically a few recordings of some guy taking the bus somewhere in Paris. He has a pretty rough uh, hood, kind of like accent. So I don't know exactly what the idea is, but he doesn't sound like a proper gentleman. He doesn't sound professional at all. It's just a dude, really what I'd call a dude, taking the bus. And that will never be useful to you ever again. It is expensive. It is useless. I've never seen anybody really come out with anything out of it. I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of folks. For example, a lot of university students are encouraged to either take a French class, private school, like myself, or to go through Rosetta Stone. And because that's how I know about it, is that it fails them completely, and so hoping to guide them through it, I end up teaching them the French language because there's nothing to learn there. uh, I can't say that's true for everything, though. I'd say other language programs, packages that exist out there may be good. I'd say a lot of it have moved on to a lot of kind of an online presence, dictionaries, so on. Reliable sources for government are going to be a lot of the government documents, and so on. A lot of reliable documents for you. Terminology, termiumplus.gc.ca. Maybe I can write that down for us somewhere. I will go over here and tell you this is termiumplus.gc.ca. And as a Canadian, but anywhere in the world, you can access terminology is specific jargon. It's the actual uh, proper word, the translation for specifics, usually based on science or a field of work, applicable science, and so on. So, what we call a verification everywhere else, well, in French, it might become an audit, and so on. That's a new word that's changed, but and that's the thing, is that words change, they evolve. It used to be an audit in French was known as une vérification. Now it's known as un audit, or audit, as you wish. And so the language is evolving. Termium Plus is the authority. If you work with a specific lingo, language, professional language and you probably do in your professional respective field, then you want Termium in your life. That is reliable. That is trustworthy. Free dictionaries online, not always the most reliable. I will go with maybe we don't want them sometimes. We want to stick to maybe more professional ones. And so I will share here. Larousse.france has a English French dictionary on there. Larousse still sells paper. They still sell dictionaries out there. Every year they make a medical dictionary, a Scrabble dictionary is gastronomy, and every English, French, and so on. They don't make mistakes. Cheaper or free or open sourced dictionaries are not very reliable. Alors, I want to give you reliable resources here, reliable source of knowledge. I'd say, as far as teachers go for people who are in the field you're in or somewhere in there, professionals. I would go for, of course, I spoke about earlier about teachers earlier on in a previous video. Teachers would typically be, they will put their pride aside and do look up certain terms and would have a good knowledge of English when addressing an English crowd and so on. Otherwise, here's what I do recommend. We're going to need a real life, real applicable French, not the French you read in fairy tales. We have a verb tense in French. It is only available for fairy tales. No one uses it. And I don't mean like, oh, no, it's not very common. I mean, no one uses it in regular life. It is strictly literary for fairy tales, very specifically. Great for, but that's it's kind of sad. We teach kids a French they'll never use. Don't rely on that kind of source. That is also unreliable. What you do want to use perhaps would be factual documents. Alors, workplace documents, great for vocab, sure. But also, it's going to sound silly, product reviews. I trust product reviews. They will tell you this product does this, does that. In the past, products like these ones did not do a good job, but now you will see a difference with this new product, and so on. You will use realistic vocab, verb tenses, applicable, makes a lot of sense, applies well to English or French. You can find documents that are both French and English. Otherwise, a very reliable source would be government websites. Most websites, whether it's Ontario, Quebec, whether it is federal government, and your division, your branch, specific, they have a website in French and in English, and they do watch how they type and how they write and all that. People are working hard to make sure that everything is coherent, and so you could have your French source, and if you are unsure and dubious, and what are they talking about here? Click English or print out the English page, the English counterpart. You have both of them, and now you can be sure that, oh, when we use this term in my specific respective field of work, that means this. It translates to that term in as far as my work goes. Different ministries, different agencies will have very specific lingo that they use in house, unpopular to anybody. No one else really uses them. Well, those are the correct words, though. That's your work language. And so, my friends, I'd say when we want to be a perfectionist and we think we're going to learn more and go further, and the more I do, the better, you might end up burning out. That's something we could discuss in the next video. Kind of like the pressure that we put on ourselves. But before that, I love the idea that you want better material. Beware, all material is not of the same quality. Unreliable sources can create damage to your brain, to your knowledge, to your morale, to your spirit, to your positive attitude towards French. Well, it could all go down the drain. Alors, don't venture too far. Don't trust more reliable material. I recommend it greatly. That's about it. I hope that helps you. I hope that guides you a lot. All right.